Record. Right. So hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Expert Talk. My name is Einav Avni, and I run the group, Heal Yourself Naturally. And in the group, we have this once weekly slot of Expert Talk. And today, as we had in the last couple of weeks, and also next week, we have Lori Voss-Furukawa.
Close, almost.
I've been practicing this, and it reads so easily, and then it's pronounced all.
No problem.
I'm sorry. So Laurie is going to introduce herself in a minute. She knows how to pronounce her name. That is already a better start. But I am seriously excited about this talk today and about this series of nutrition, wellness through nutrition. Laurie, let me stop mumbling and hand it over to you to introduce yourself and the topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So my name is Lori Voss-Furukawa. It's a Japanese last name. Many people stumble with it, not a big deal anyway. So yes, today we are doing part 3 of a 4-part nutrition series, and just a little bit about myself in case you haven't caught the other videos, which I recommend checking them out if you haven't, just because they're all good info. And it's a series, so it's leading up, and it really helps to stack these things together. But I'm originally from Canada, and I moved abroad to teach English in Japan. And then as I was overseas, I met my husband. And then in that time and space, I developed some health issues. And the healing journey that I went on in my own space led me to become more empowered and really heal myself. But also taking on those tools is now a space where I am that I want to share them with other people. And the main tools that I use is traditional Chinese medicine, and it specifically is the nutritional aspect of it. And I also work with Reiki, yoga, and meditation as well. And it's all very energetic as well. So that's really where I'm coming from in that space. And I really focus on self-love. That's a big piece that falls under all of those categories, because I know that from my own journey and also for the people that I work with, when we really can embody that self-love, we start to do the things that are really healing for us and serve our body on deeper level and commit to it. It's not only I'll do it for the diet or I do it for this little bit, right? We have a stronger commitment when we really can embody that self-love. If you've been following so far, you've seen a healing process on my face. I had come the first week, almost canceled our series because I had a rash around my mouth. I've been talking about it as well each session because it was quite prominent the first 2 weeks. Now it's getting a lot better. There still is a little bit, but it's much, much better. And what I want to share about that is if you are on a healing journey, keep going. Keep going. Don't give up. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Sometimes it seems difficult. Sometimes it seems hard. There's times when we feel like a step can, something knocks us back. I just want to encourage you to keep on that path because it's really important. If you have tools and if you're doing things that are healing your body and that are resonating in your core, that are making you a healthier person, it's not always linear and it's not always easy, but keep at it. You're on the right track. So yes. One other piece that I had written down that I wanted to, or that I had noted, we talked last week specifically about processed carbohydrates and processed foods, and kind of in general we went there, but specifically about the carbohydrates, we were talking about processed ones, but I remember it came up about potatoes and rice and limiting those. Those are actually good carbohydrates that we want. White rice is a different story. White rice we could really think about eliminating. We want to get to the browns and the different colored variations. Those are good for us. They really do serve our body. And unfortunately, in today's world, carbohydrates do really have a bad rap, and everybody wants to think all carbohydrates out, these are garbage or weight gain, all that stuff. So there is good carbohydrates out there. Potatoes and rice are definitely on that list. Okay, so now here we are to today's topic, life force nutrition. I'm really passionate about this. Is where I feel like, oh my gosh, it really like lights me up. It's really, I feel it's really juicy, and it's the life force, and it brings my life force out. So what is it, right? Like, everybody kind of asks this question. And the simplest form is, it is foods that provide our body with life force. Now, you answer the question with the same wording, it doesn't really help, right? So any foods that are still fresh, so picked from the garden, picked from the tree, these kinds of things are containing life force. And when we can also think about it in terms of foods that provide new life. So an apple, for example, you pick it from the tree, it has still that life force within it. It's still alive. As it sits longer and longer on your countertop, it can get soggy, brown. It's slowly dying. The life force within that apple is going away. So of course, we want to think about eating foods as close as possible to when they are picked from the ground or picked from the tree or the plant, its main source of life, right? And life force foods, another way to look at it is, these are healing foods. Because they are providing us with this life force energy, they have the ability to heal our body. And they bring in, like I say, that life force. Usually when we're ill, we have some, like really across the board, many different types of illnesses or diseases that we have. It's really, there's two main things that we can look at when we come from the traditional Chinese medicine perspective. And there's one of them is, it's a life force deficiency that's causing this disease or illness in your body. And the other one is interference. So there's some type of maybe chemicals in your life or external things that are also stopping the flow in our body. And we kind of usually have to work on both of those components. Next week, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into detoxing, where we can talk a little bit more about interference being a problem in our life. But today, we want to talk about life force nutrition. And when, like I say, if we have an issue with, like I say, many different things in our life where we are life force deficient, low energy, even like sleeping disorders, for example, as well, this is a problem of life force deficiency. We want to think about how to enhance our life force. So eating more fresh, local, organic foods. This is definitely a factor. Now, in saying that, I don't necessarily recommend a raw food diet or only consuming fruits and vegetables. We need to think about diversity. So we're getting that diversity in for our body, getting a full range of nutrients and minerals and all that good stuff that we need for everything to function, right? So the best life force giving foods that I do recommend for my clients to start incorporating more. We talked about it last week, whole grains. And why whole grains? Again, if we go back a little bit in that space. So whole grains, like I believe I mentioned this last week, but it doesn't hurt to go over it. Repetition has 80% better recall. So there we go. The grain itself, the seed of the rice, for example, we have the plant, right? And there's many different grains on that one plant. And each individual grain of rice on there has the ability to produce new life, right? And that is therefore life force giving. It's natural because that seed is, like I say, going to produce new life. And this is, for me, a really beautiful piece when I think about life force nutrition, because it's actually really simple. We can really take a lot of the complicated diets and complicated scientific proof and information and all this. You know that a seed has the ability to produce new life. And if it doesn't, that means that seed's been genetically modified and it doesn't have life force. It's not serving us. It's not actually really even that fruit or that corn or that vegetable doesn't also carry the life force. Like, I think about, for example, seedless grapes. This started, I remember, like in the 80s, 90s, like all of a sudden there was like seedless grapes were available. And it's like, oh yeah, let's buy seedless grapes. I hate the seeds in there, blah, 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 blah. And we usually consume those. Now in my learning on the way, it's like, if that plant doesn't have the ability to reproduce, we've extracted its life force ability. And therefore, like I say, that the fruit that we're eating itself doesn't have that same nutritional content for us as well. Same like seedless watermelon. Watermelon should have seeds in it. We've genetically modified it now just for our own convenience, but it should really have that ability in it. And like I say, that's the whole cycle of life, right? That plant is providing that for the plant itself, and therefore for us to get the best nutritional value from it. So whole grains, seeds, nuts, legumes, all of these little beautiful pockets of life force have the ability to provide that for ourselves, right? The key is that we need to make sure we consume them in the correct way. And now I think also, I don't know how much I went into it last week, but again, that's where this overlap is, and things, they add up. It's a step by step, and everything kind of like fits together nicely. When we are consuming these life force giving foods, we need to make sure we consume them in the right way, which means we need to soak them overnight, 8 to 12 hours. This is really important, and a lot of people don't do this and don't think I can get away with pressure cooking. I can get away with it doing this way. My mother did it, my aunts, or this, or I've seen it. It's happened forever. Yeah, okay, but we're losing the nutritional value through a process like pressure cooking or high heat cooking in general. So we really want to take the slow approach here. And it just really comes to time management. It doesn't mean that you have to be sitting next to that bowl of rice that's soaking all night, right? It soaks overnight. In the morning, you rinse it. And then after rinsing, you can basically cook it. For example, something like quinoa, we can actually sprout that as well. And sprouts are another beautiful form of life force because they are already sprouted. The tail is already growing. They're already giving that life force. So those are like readily available for us. The enzymes are better for our digestion. Everything comes to a deeper level of nutritional value and bioavailability in our stomach, in our system. So sprouting is something I really recommend, and I teach with all my clients, and I do in my own house every day. Some simple ways that we can think about sprouting. Like I mentioned, quinoa is an easy grain that we can sprout. So the grain itself is healthy when, like I say, done in the proper preparation. But when we sprout it, we level it up. So we can do this. Most of the grains sprout pretty easy, some easier than others. Buckwheat sprouts easy. Amaranth is too tiny. I haven't even bothered trying. It's too finicky. Millet, I have a hard time. Rice is a little bit more challenging. Quinoa does well. Barley is a little bit more challenging as well. And I believe there was probably one other one that I didn't mention now, but that's okay. Not a big deal. But all like chickpeas, for example, I had mentioned this last week as well. These kinds of things, we can also sprout them before cooking. It takes, like I say, another maybe day or two on your countertop in the right preparation, and they'll start to sprout. And then again, increasing that life force ability for our bodies to help heal, bringing that healing food in that we all need, right? Especially as I've mentioned in previous talks before, that there's a lot of damage in our soil around the world in today's world, and it's just like we need to think about really getting these life force foods as much as possible so we can help ourselves and help get that nutrients available. I don't remember if I talked about last week specifically the why we need to soak. Do you recall if I talked about that, or you feel also fuzzy in that area?
Let's repeat. I feel good to repeat. Definitely.
Okay. So yes, talk about chickpea, for example. The chickpea, I think chickpeas actually grow on a tree, but we'll say the plant of it, right? The chickpea plant, that's the mother plant. It produces all these little babies, the little seeds, the little chickpeas on there, and it gives a coating, phytic acid. It gives that protective coating over top of those chickpeas. And that protective coating is there to help protect it against fungus and bacteria and animals and all these things in there, right? So it's nature, it's natural. When that chickpea would fall off the plant and go into the ground, it needs to have water, a lot of water, to rinse off that coating, and therefore it starts to have the ability to grow. So that phytic acid that protects the plant in a good way for the plant is damaging for our gut. and it's not easily digestible for our stomach, and it takes away other minerals and vitamins. It's extracting from us, basically. So it's really quite damaging, and we really want to shift our practices in our kitchen that we can think about sprouting, soaking, rinsing, and potentially sprouting, right? So yes, removing this protective coating on all nuts, seeds, legumes, whole grains is essential, so we can have the best bioavailability for us and the best life force nutrition for our bodies. We'll show you a couple whole grains that I have here. So whole grains, sorry, sprouts. I do sprouting every day. There's different ways we can do sprouting. I have these trays. I only brought one here now because all my other ones are in use. And it basically, there's 4 trays that stack on top of each other. I have a couple of sprouts I just picked out of my bin, that out of the trays in the kitchen. So I have this little guy here. This is a mung bean. It's hard to maybe see. Has a little tail on there. You can see it's a little bit bigger. I have another one here. It's let me see here. They're a little bit dried already. There, I hold it that way. It's a little radish sprout that's a little bit spicier flavored. And then I have here, I believe it's fennel. And this one is quite almost a little bit nutty flavor. So a variety of sprouts really will, again, provide us with a variety of nutrients and nutritional availability. I always have stuff like this, these little mung beans sitting on my counter. So I know that these are one of my favorites. They're easy to sprout. They taste really good. You can add them to soups. You can eat them as they are. And then I have access to getting good sprouts like this one here. This is a radish one. And basically you want to buy sprouts or seeds that are made for sprouting. That's the best way. Although you can have like mung beans, they don't have to be specific for sprouting. Regular ones out of a package will do. Chickpeas as well. You just buy regular dried chickpeas and they will have the ability to sprout. Depending on the quality of the actual chickpea, for example, will determine its sprouting ability. Quality, fresher dried ones will have a better ability to sprout. A couple more different pieces of life force providing foods. So I said the fresh fruits and vegetables, and picking or eating those as close as we can to when they've been picked. So really thinking, or if you have the ability, tapping into a local farmer's market, if you have that near you, this is going to be usually the best way to get that freshest food available for us. Also, if you do shopping at a supermarket, if you don't have access to a farmer's market, take a look on where the food is grown. This is going to be a big factor as well. If you are in North America, for example, and the food is coming from Australia or New Zealand because you're getting kiwis fruit, not really fresh. That has to come all the way across the ocean. And how long, since it's been picked there and all that. And again, we're not touching sustainability even in that case as well, right? So really thinking about where it's been. And usually supermarkets will say when they have the price, maybe where it's from, or the package itself might say where it's been grown or the origin. So just taking a look. Again, it's not necessarily an ingredient list when we're buying fresh food, but it will usually state that. So really looking for fresh as much as possible. Now I talked about sprouts as well. Yeah, I don't usually recommend meat in our diets for the main reason of the animal is dead. How can there be life force in something that is dead? And this comes from an energetic perspective. This is coming from the wisdom of this life force nutrition, okay? And I know there's different types of eating, there's different types of doing things. You got to do what feels best for you. But in the perspective of life force nutrition, something that's dead has no life force there, and we can't eat an animal if it's alive. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't work like that, right? So we really want to think about a sustainable way of eating, which is really tapping into more the plant-based diet, which is also healthy for our bodies. There's plethora of studies out there that talk about plant-based diet being a healthy way to gracefully age, and it's good for our body, good for weight management, good for all kinds of things. So yes, some different ways that I know I've heard people sprouting. Like I say, I like to use these trays the best. Is what I do is I have actually a bowl. I have a bowl. I like to use stainless steel. If you're using plastic, I recommend getting this away from your life as much as possible. I have a stainless steel bowl. Glass is also okay. I take my whole grains or my sprouts, whatever I'm using, I rinse them with a strainer like this. I also have a stainless steel strainer. I rinse them in the strainer under the sink and then put them in here, fill it up with water, and it soaks in here overnight. In the morning, rinse everything out, rinse it off. And then if I'm making sprouts, then I'll put it into here. You really want to have the least amount of water as possible in your tray. And once everything has been soaked, you don't want to put your fingers in there anymore. Because now that we've removed that phytic acid, we've removed that protective covering, we're basically opening up this beautiful little seed to grow, but it also is more susceptible for bacteria and mold growth, right? So even if you wash your hands before, we just really want to, not even, we should be washing our hands before we're touching our food anyways, but we really want to avoid contamination, of course, because we want to be healthy, right? So just I use a spoon or a fork and I spread the sprouts out over my tray, one nice layer, and then I do that every day. Some of these trays, not some of them, these trays actually have a little hole through there, and they're stackable, right? So on the box, it's recommended that you would pour the water from the top and then the water drains through each tray slowly. I found that these little grooves, there's little grooves in the tray. Sometimes the tails of these sprouts get stuck in the grooves and I don't see it because I think, oh, the water just ran through there. It's fine. And then the next day I do the same thing. You have to rinse it in the morning and the evening when you're making sprouts, or twice a day. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, a whole tray's wasted because some of the tails got stuck in there and now there's mold and bacteria and it's yucky and gross. So I like to take this tray, I put it under water, swish the water around in there, and I dump everything through here, and I really make sure it's clean. I found it's the best way that I can manage to keep everything nice and clean and keep the bacteria away. There is jars that you can use for sprouting as well. I don't have them. I never use them. It's not what I was taught. Some people swear by it. They say it's really easy and it's fine. I personally don't know if I really like it because usually the sprouts are stacked quite thick in there. And again, my concern is bacteria growth. And you can't really see what's going on in the center. And I don't like that. I don't want to eat garbage food. If I'm on my healing journey, I need to eat good food that's going to help me. I've seen and heard people also doing sprouting through like mesh bag kind of thing. They'll put everything in a bag and they hang it up. Same kind of concept. You're not really seeing what's going on in there. Again, you're moving more towards the potential mold growth and bacteria. I also saw some Facebook groups I went on just for curiosity, sprouting groups and these kinds of things. People talking about using old milk cartons or juice containers. Please don't do that. Invest in a tray, okay? Invest in the proper equipment to do it because I don't care. There's just too much opportunity for bacteria growth and that kind of thing. Like, just don't. We want to, if you really are serious about making good choices for your health, invest this a stack of this trays. I think it cost me 20 euros, 15, 20 euros. I'm using it for 6 years already. Like the investment will pay off, I guarantee, if you're using it regularly. And there's also little different types of trays you can do sprouting with for microgreens. So some seeds are really tiny, like broccoli seeds, for example, or arugula as well. There's a couple that are really tinier and they get stuck also in the tray, the little grooves of the tray. So it's really annoying and really frustrating. And again, the opportunity for bacteria growth. Those ones do better on microgreen sprouting trays. So they're built a little bit different. You can have ones that you can do with the soil, or where it's just the tray and the roots will grow down and get to the water on the bottom. And you would usually just spray them with a kind of spray bottle. And that's another way. And then you cut off the tops that you want to eat. Another way that's also good and generally quite clean. I haven't had much issues with that. And in saying that, I think I've covered all the little bits and pieces I wanted to share with you. If you have any questions, please feel free.
Thank you. Oh, that's been very interesting. Also, kind of thinking about you know, it's not all or nothing, right? I mean, there's probably where we are at the moment. And it's really interesting. Since we started the series, people are kind of texting me or messaging me and share some of their health or nutrition journey. And it's really interesting that a lot of people in the group, Heal Yourself Naturally, they're already quite aware of the, the need to change the diet or the way that they're eating. So it's interesting to hear, where we started, a couple of weeks ago with talking about sugar, and here we are, really quite, further down in this, the whole movement into healthier eating, which is really like sprouting your own stuff. So I have a couple of questions, I guess, and I'm going to just mention a couple. First of all, I want to know how is it, what kind of, no, I'm going to re ask my question. So what does a menu look like? If there's so many things that are, we're talking about healing, so we definitely want to have more of this natural stuff that we grow ourselves or sprout ourselves or soak and all of that. But what is what kind of a menu example can look like? That's one question. And the next question that I think I just want to add there is it the same healing foods that are good for all kinds of illnesses, would you say? Or is there some different things that people need to think about, for example, with MS versus cancer, for example?
Okay, so yeah, first one, a typical menu. For example, I like to have my grains in the morning. So I'll soak my grains the night before, and then I'm ready to cook them in the morning. That's my breakfast always. And in that, that's another point that makes me remember, thank you very much, have a root vegetable. A root vegetable like sweet potato, daikon, this Japanese white radish, carrots also, red beet, yams, parsnips, turnips, these roots that are the vegetable themselves, they are also very life force enhancing because they're full of minerals, right? So I'm usually having a whole grain type of breakfast. So for example, today I had millet and I had some sweet potato with it. And that would be my breakfast. Then lunch, I had actually some slice of sourdough bread or a couple slices of sourdough bread, and I had sprouts on there. And I was eating that with sprouts. And you can at that point also incorporate maybe like a healthy oil as well. Something like that can be really good. Again, it depends how much energy you're putting out and what then therefore you need to take in. And what I had also today, for speaking of my menu today, for my dinner, I already consumed it. I had a little bit more brown rice, maybe about 2 tablespoons, not very much, of cooked brown rice, a dark brown rice. So it's actually like a black, dark color. 2 tablespoons or so I had of this dark rice, some green vegetables, and then I had made some beans. I had slow cooking all day today with carrots and a little bit of a tomato, almost like a chili, spicy flavor, but just with the beans and garlic and onions in there. And that's my meal menu for today. So really trying to get the whole grains in there, get the vegetables. Today, honestly, I didn't eat as many vegetables as I would have liked to, but I feel like, I ate quite a bit of sprouts at breakfast, lunch. It's okay. I feel like, and some days are better than others. We're only human, right? It's how things are. But I do like to do my best to really think about what's my vegetables that I'm really taking in today, because for years I barely ate any at all, and it's like these are beautiful foods for our body. They really help us in a lot of different ways. Yeah, so I hope that answers your question. And then I usually don't eat much more than that. The rest of the evening I'm not eating. I practice intermittent fasting, so I'm drinking tea or having hot water or warm water in the evening. And that's more or less my day. I also had some homemade chocolate. I did have that today as well. So yeah, that was my sweet treat for today, which I also am limiting these kinds of things in my diet in general, but especially because I'm really still in a healing space, I want to make sure that I still keep on track. In terms of these foods, like you say, like if someone has MS or someone has cancer or different things, they're There can be, of course, some variation depending on, for example, where someone's at in their cancer journey or where someone's at on their healing journey. They might really need to be focusing on, and like I said, next week we'll talk a little bit more about that. We get into like the detoxing foods. So that's where we look at like these life force enhancing foods. If someone is having constipation, for example, that contributes also to other issues, and this is can be chronic, we want to be mindful about how much life force enhancing foods we're putting in, because this can be almost too much, and it's like it's too powerful. So there's definitely tweaking and an individual programs that can go for different types of diseases and situations or illnesses that people have. However, in general, it's important to have some types of these life force enhancing foods every day. Like I say, sprouts are easy and good for everyone. I don't know if that would ever be taken off the list for anyone. That's like super easy digestibility, easy to incorporate, and they are so full of life force nutrition. Something like that is beautiful. So yeah, and also, like, again, I would say whole grains can be across the board, but if someone has celiac, we need to think about how can we reverse the celiac? How can we repair your gut so you can enjoy these things again? And I'm not talking about enjoying pasta. I'm talking about enjoying the whole grains that provide us with the life force. So we would start on a different process if someone is in that kind of really, if the microbiome of their gut has such dysbiosis, if they're really out of sync and there's not balance in there, we would have to start at a slower pace and think about how can we start with these baby steps to heal what's happening in there. So yeah, there is some variation, absolutely, but in general, life force foods are really necessary for all of us. And like I say, next week we'll get a little bit more into the detoxing part of what can also be that's where the balance can come in.
No, it is really interesting. And I was listening to a lecture by this doctor. His name is Nado Buto, and he's all about energy. So it's mind, body, soul, and really looking at nutrition as part of everything that he's, as part of the healing. And he's definitely, believing that you can really heal yourself naturally. And he was talking about illnesses as having 4 different stages. And he said, for example, cancer is actually on the far side of that, because there is no energy. When you are in cancer, it's usually you are in resting energy, because there is no, you have basically no energy anymore. So he was talking about having this kind of foods, like you're saying, the life force nutrition. But he mentioned things like a lot of green juices, and then doing coffee animals and things to kind of try and bring more energy to the system. Now, I guess the juices will probably cover next time, but I am also curious about that. Yeah, I mean, in the way that you see things, is juices good or not good if they're I guess not fruit juice, but vegetable vegetable juices.
Yeah. Well, good or bad, I think that's a challenge. I think there's a right time for them. And yeah, generally juices, as I mentioned in some of the talks before, for sure, I talked about like vegetables and fruits being more yin based, so they're more detoxifying in general. So we want to be careful again, and that's where the healing diet comes in, right? That's that healing space. We want to be cleansing the system, but also still providing the life force, so we're not completely not replenishing, oh my gosh, my word went depleting. Yeah, that works. Not completely depleting everything, right? And so yeah, there's definitely, I cannot say they're good or bad. In the right time and space, a fruit juice is also good for us. A fresh one I would recommend homemade. You need a juicer and you do it yourself. That's the freshness of it, right? We don't want to be buying this stuff that's been produced wherever and who knows what's added in there. We really want to think about having our own tools to do that ourselves, and that's where we're going to get the best benefit from things. Yeah. And it definitely, juice can be healing in the right time and space. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have got a few more questions, but I'll see. Andrew, do you have any questions?
Thank you. No, I don't. There's a lot to take in on this one. I'm not so familiar with what's been touched upon today. It's been a fascinating insight. Though I think it'll take me a little while to get to grips with it.
Yeah, maybe the replay.
Yeah,
the
there's
replay.
a lot in there, and there's quite a bit here that I'm not so familiar with as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I find that as well. Some of the people that I work with, if they've specifically been following a ketogenic diet, they're like, whoa, this kind of like, they're like, but I've been following this and that, and how do I, it's like, where does this fit in now? Because I've almost trained my mind that I need these foods and those foods are bad, or that kind of thing, right? So it definitely can be a lot of information. But thank you so much for being here and listening. I appreciate that, and for your honesty.
It's very interesting, and in fact, it's fascinating stuff. It's a question of how I combine, if that's the right thing to do, with what I'm used to, what I do at the moment, with some of the new ideas I've been sort of presented with.
I think that is also a very, very good question, because I don't know. I don't believe going from 0 to 100. I really do believe in gradual and introducing things slowly and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it is really fascinating. But I'll let, of course, Laurie answer, and then of course I have a few more questions.
Well, I'm not sure I can actually answer so much. Like you say, you're just going to take in as much as you can and see how you feel about it. And yeah, what I wanted to say is, as you integrate, the information kind of sits in your mind and your headspace a bit more. If questions come up, feel free to ask, how can I do this? What would I do this way? How is the best way there? Because that, that tends to be, we're doing something else and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I never thought of that before. I'm curious, what about this way? Or how about that? So, or unless there was a more specific question, but it felt like you were kind of just almost asking yourself.
So I want to ask a couple more questions. The first one, I guess, is really about rice, because we're saying brown rice is I'm going to use the word good again, but of course I don't necessarily mean good. But there are a lot of reports that keep coming up about rice and its various colors and stuff, and some people say really just like pasta and all of that, maybe don't use it anymore because it's really has too many toxins or things that things that are not good for you in them. How do we know, or what to do when what is better than other, what grain is better than other?
Well, I always like to talk about diversity. So I wouldn't recommend eating rice every day, for example. And always organic, as much as you can, purchasing organic, good quality. That's going to help us to get rid of that toxic stuff that's put on from farmers and such. But when we do really the proper rinsing, soaking process, we're helping that bioavailability for our body. And again, this came up with another conversation with a client this week. We really can think about countries like China, for example, or Japan or India. These countries, or Indonesia, their base of their culture is rice. That's a big piece for a lot of them. And these countries are also the most populous in the world, right? They are population-wise thriving, and that's where, a lot of this ancient wisdom is coming from. Our ancestors knew what they were doing. Unfortunately, like I say, some of the farming practices we do today have sidetracked some of that, right? But when we really think about our ancestors and what some of the things that they may have consumed and how they, managed and did quite well, we can tap into that space. And in terms of rice, yeah, going organic, go the whole grain, different variation of color, it's good for us. Don't buy the parboiled, pre-boiled stuff that only takes 10 minutes to cook, or cook in your microwave, or whatever, these nonsense things. Buy the real rice. Then you'll be okay. And like I say, not eating it every day. Last week I mentioned 6 different grains. Eat, one rice is Monday. It doesn't have to be that strict, but it could be if that feels like a meal plan for you. On Mondays, I eat rice. Tuesdays is buckwheat. Wednesday is millet. Thursday is quinoa. Friday is barley, and then you rotate or do however you want. But, you can meal plan like that. Absolutely. So, you don't have to have that decision fatigue. What did I do? How do I do it?
But you're saying basically that you are using these grains, or you can have them in, either breakfast, lunch, or dinner, right? It's just a question of how to make.
Yes. Yes, you could have them any of the meals. It's perfectly okay. I say perfectly okay. That's maybe not the best word to use. It's okay to have them any meal. However, when we really dig deeper into the energetics of food and the energetics of our planet, the energetics of our body, whole grains are better for us in the morning hours, in the earlier hours of the day, because they're more life force enhancing. They are more yang in terms of yin and yang, and they have more heat in them. So they're better in the morning hours. But I mean, if your only chance to eat them is in the evening, then I would say, please eat them in the evening for your dinner.
And I'm really curious to know a little bit about, of course, this could have come at any time of these conversations, but I guess, how are you working with your clients when they come to you, regardless if it's for healing or for just feeling better? How is the work? How do you do it? What do you do with the client?
So yeah, that's why I like to really work one-on-one. They come to me with where they're at. Some people are like, I need weight management, or I need this. And they're like, okay, we'll assess and that's where we talk about, like, where are you at? And basically, where do you want to go? What's the deal? And then going from there, we work on an ongoing basis to set up like the steps we've been talking about already. Again, depending on where the person's at. Some people are like, totally, they don't eat any of these things already. So, okay, I don't need to go over all those basic steps or those foundational pieces. You know that already, but you have also taken out all whole grains because you think they're bad for you. So we talk about why it's good and how to incorporate them, recipe ideas, being creative. Also, there's some people, they're like, I hate root vegetables. I can't stand all the ones you just listed, right? So these kinds of things as well. Like, how can we incorporate them? How can you start to think about having these in your life? How can we, different, again, creative ideas. I'm not really strict on specific recipes per se. I do have some, of course. I love cooking in the kitchen, but I'm quite creative, and I do my best to inspire my clients to be creative as well, because people are all across the world that I work with. So different people in different seasons, different availabilities of what's growing, what's this, what's that. I don't want to be like, these are the things you need to eat. That actually really bothers me when I see other dietitians and nutritionists saying you have to consume these foods. And I think, I am not going to buy avocados that come from Chile. I will not. I cannot. Sustainability, so many reasons, right? Like, don't get me started on that. But it's like these kinds of things. Yeah, they're a powerful food. They have lots of good stuff for us. But I don't accept the fact that they're grown and destroying the land for the people that live there. I cannot, So I really do my best to have recipes and creative space for my clients in that way. And then, yeah, like I say, it's ongoing for the support time that they need. In the new year, I'm going to be starting a program for energetic eating. So it'll be a little bit different structure. I'm still working on exactly putting everything together, but it's still individual basis to meet the client where they're really at. And we're going to go there from there and move forward. Yeah.
That sounds fascinating. That really sounds fascinating. Thank you. For me, the healing powers of nutrition are fascinating. It's just really interesting for me when my older brother, when he was diagnosed with cancer 13 something years ago, it was really interesting for me that the first thing I did was go and find a book about, changing your nutritions and stuff like that. He never ended up getting it, but but that, for me, that was, immediately that's kind of where I went. So I'm so excited by it, and but I definitely see how it's a whole, I guess when people are trying to heal, or in the process of healing, they're maybe more willing or focused, or things that maybe other people are not. So I think that's why when you're saying just catch yourself where you are at, and then continue from there, it's good, because you don't have to go 100%. You can just do better than what we did yesterday, and that's already going to do better.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I think that kind of comes to the end of my questions. Anything else to add before we finish for today?
I don't think so. I just again, like, if you're on your healing journey, keep going, keep looking for that. And I feel sometimes people can be confused. There's a lot of information out there. We want to go simple. I really am really passionate about taking the complicated out of healing and being healthy, because there's just too much garbage and nonsense and marketing stuff out there. We got to go simple, feel what resonates with you, and move forward from that space. Really tapping into that self-love, the intuition, that space that's within us already. We know it. We just have to tap into that again. Yeah,
exactly. And as we are in the group, we definitely invite people to get in touch and ask questions, or to make comments, or because it is so it can be so confusing. So let's use this the invitation to share and heal together.
Yes. It's always easier when there's support and community as well. So thank you for providing this space.
Thank you. I'm very excited about it. And yes, so for anyone watching the replay, please do bring in your questions. Let's have a conversation. Let's really make this the community that we want it to be, because like Laurie just said, it is easier with support and other people that are going through the same things. Laurie, thank you so much again for your wisdom, for your kindness, for sharing all of this, and for blowing our minds. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. See you again for next week. Tell us very briefly what is next week again. Just
next week we're going to talk about detoxing in general. There's lots of people that are like, should I do this? Should I do that? So we're going to again go simple, talking about how we can approach detoxing from a simple perspective, and again, what's some good ways to go about that. So we'll be focusing on that.
Wonderful. Very much needed.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes. Take care. Bye-bye.